As you and your fellow coworkers climb the ladder of Salmon Run ranks for Grisco Industries, you have to face increasingly difficult quotas for the company, and the stress of not disappointing Mr. Grizz and Grisco can be overwhelming. Fortunately, there is one technique that every Grisco employee should know about and master, and it is called luring. So in this video, I'll cover the basics of luring, what it is, what its uses are for, but also the dangers of luring that too many fall into by brute forcing it, or as we like to call it, over luring. As your rank gets higher and higher in Salmon Run, the quotas you have to complete also get higher, from having to deliver only 4 or 5 eggs all the way up to even 25 eggs per wave, and especially in Executive VP I found the most common cause for reps is actually failing to deliver the eggs on time. The most effective strategy developed to help this problem is luring. As you know, several of the Salmonid bosses in Salmon Run like to chase you and your coworkers. Most obvious ones are being Scrappers, Steel Eels, and Moths. But a lot of people don't know this also applies to Flipper Floppers, Steelheads, Slaminlids, and to Drizzlers too, which is pretty much the large majority of them. Luring is the idea of staying back alone or with your team depending on the boss and letting them get closer to the basket before splatting them. Most of these bosses are pretty easy to handle, and letting them get closer from the shore to the basket will allow you to deliver their golden eggs much faster and easier than if you had to run back and forth from the coastline. This is especially important as the rest of the Salmonid hordes will also keep spawning at the coast, the most dangerous place of all Salmon Run stages, and going back there is always a great risk of getting splatted. Another reason that often gets overlooked why you shouldn't spend that much time on the shore is that it also draws the attention of the other bosses to you, instead of letting them get to the basket one by one, resulting in large packs standing on the shore that will eventually start moving back to the basket, combining with the new wave and completely overwhelming the team as there will be too many of them. Luring bosses, especially at the very beginning of the stage, is a vital strategy to master if you want to get better at Salmon Run, as the ability to deliver those 3 eggs almost instantly and without having to use any ink to throw them from a distance is night and day difference to what most freelance players do, which is putting everything on the shore. This is a most obvious problem on the hydroplan stage at low tide, which is quite perfect for me to showcase this. As you know, on this low tide coastline, the only path the salmonids can come closer to you is through the bridge in the middle. Now what most freelance players tend to do is rush at the spawn on the other side and splat everything there, resulting in 10 or 15 eggs just laying around either in the middle of the bridge or around the end. Fast forward 20 seconds or so and what you will most likely see is a horde of salmonids, slaminlids, steel eels, and scrappers standing right on top of those 20 eggs, causing panic and an eventual wrap for the whole team as it becomes impossible to collect them. The simple act of luring those bosses closer to the basket in most cases solves this problem, for barely any risk, as letting that maw get to the basket first or letting that steel eel move just a little bit closer most of the time doesn't cause any trouble, but it will help your team a lot to complete your quota. So all in all, even if not every single boss, but do try to lure the easy ones such as maws, steel eels, and scrappers closer to the basket and spread the wonders of luring to your fellow coworkers. But well, I did say most of the time it is not a danger, and so we arrive to the hazards of luring, or otherwise, over-luring. Often players who learn of this technique get overzealous quickly, trying to apply it to every single situation to practice and forcing it onto every freelance team they meet, causing lots of chaos, panic, and frustration. While luring is an excellent strategy if done properly and in a controlled environment such as pre-made teams or a team of experienced runners, it can be just as much a detriment and damage to your whole team if done wrong or your coworkers aren't prepared. The side effect of luring is that bosses remain longer on the stage, and you rely more on your and your team's ability to react to different situations and also react quickly to a dangerous boss spawning. These bosses would be big shots, stingers, or fly fishes on the shore, which are generally the only bosses you should ever really go there. If a team is luring properly, dealing with those 3 is quick and efficient, and oftentimes you don't even have to worry about delivering their 3 eggs, since you have more than enough golden eggs to deliver from all the other salmonids, so your priority is just to get rid of them while your team is gathering eggs near the basket. This is one of the major tips for Salmon Run in general, is to sometimes take a step back and think if there are easier eggs to worry about rather than to risk it all for those 3 eggs on the farthest corner of the shore and just take care of the danger, grab 1 egg, and get back to the basket. Now, if we examine the situation in a standard freelance match instead, what happens most likely is that if a coworker or 2 are luring bosses, but the rest of the team doesn't comply and they don't adjust their gameplay to that fact, the moment 2 big shots spawn, and let's say another stinger at the opposite corner, which is already dangerous in itself, and you were in the middle of luring bosses alone, you will find yourself in the position that you need to leave the basket to deal with a new danger, but going back will already be too late as the lured bosses were not dealt with properly, and by that time there will be too many salmonids all over the stage to be able to recover at all, causing a defeat more or less. Of course there is more to it, such as on-the-spot decision making and so on, but the point is that luring requires players to constantly calculate when it is good to continue luring and when you should focus on clearing the stage instead. Another example would be based on weapon rotations. Not every rotation offers a good chance for each coworker to deal with all the bosses easily, such as, let's say, a steelhead. So in those cases, maybe it's not a good idea to lure steelheads back to the basket if you are unsure about your team's ability, whether or not they can splat them on demand without trouble. Otherwise, you just have another boss near the basket to annoy you, reducing valuable space you can move in. So in short, luring is not always the solution or the right answer to every situation, and players need to adapt and react every moment to decide how far it is worth to lure targets, and what situations or, in the case of freelance, what teams benefit more from not luring at all to prevent overwhelming your team. There are always other strategies you can use, such as egg hopping between members of your team from shore back to the basket that a lot love to use, and maybe in some teams that works better as a lot of players tend to perform better in low-stress environment. Luring is a delicate technique to learn that takes time and also human skills to respect your coworkers that maybe not everyone can handle the same amount of stress as you can, and then luring should be kept to a minimum to prevent over-luring. There is still a lot to talk about the concept of luring and over-luring, but I just wanted to create a quick beginner's guide to this strategy for now, and we'll certainly talk about the more in-depth intricacies in an advanced episode. It's important for those who didn't know about it to help your team by luring easy targets such as Moz back to the basket, but at the same time it's also a request to overzealous players as over-luring can harm just as much and it is not the only way to win a freelance duty. So what do you think? What is your experience with luring in Salmon Run? Do you see it a lot or is it more of a niche, especially in freelance? As always, if you're experienced, leave your tips and hints considering luring in the comments. Or if you have questions, also let us know so we can help. But that's a wrap for this bonus episode, and I do hope more of you can learn luring and see if you like it, but let me know if this video helped somewhat. Thank you for watching, I'll see you again next time.